Reichert. Welcome, Rick.
Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here to talk about it.
Yeah, actually, you got a new album. Actually, your debut album came out last year, right?
It did.
Yeah.
It's Along the Path. It just came out in September of last year. Correct.
Well, so I was going through your bio here, and it says you were in the armed forces. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, what got you into that? Because I read that your family was involved with that too when you were younger. So tell me about that.
Yeah, my father was in the Air Force, and I sort of grew up, kind of traveling all over the world, if you will, as a military brat. And
Mm.
then, I decided I was going to give the service a try myself. At first, I joined the Army National Guard, and then after
No.
that, I actually got the Army National Guard to release me to go active duty Navy. Interestingly, I was trying to get into like explosive ordnance disposal.
Um,
That's what I was kind of trying to get into to do with the Navy. Excuse me. Unfortunately, I didn't get into the EOD, but I did end up spending 4 years in the Navy as a gunner's mate, and I was home ported out of Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, for a while.
oh wow. Well, thank you for your service, by the way. And you're also
Nice.
a martial artist, and you're also into medieval armored combat. Tell me about that, because that's pretty interesting too.
Yeah, from a very young age, I was doing, kind of, regular karate stuff, and I also had the benefit of having traveled around the world. Actually lived in Germany for a while at the time, West Germany, and where my father was stationed. And so, when you're overseas and you're in Europe and you get to see all these castles and all these old
Oh yeah,
ruins and things like that, and you really get a firsthand kind of taste you know, for that medieval world, if you will.
right.
And so from a young age as a kid, I was always really into that kind of stuff. And then as I got to be an adult, I kind of took that with my interest in martial arts and my pursuit in martial arts, and I kind of, melded the two worlds, if you will, into what is often called medieval armored combat. It's one of the big organizations out there is Historical Medieval Battle, HMB. And you see these night fights and stuff out there with the swords. And yeah, I do that.
Yeah,
I getting a little older for it now, but yeah, I do that stuff.
yeah, that's pretty cool. Do you have a favorite castle?
Oh, I don't even know if I can remember particular castles from Germany. I was in the Trier area, and so particularly I remember like the Roman Baths, and there was an amphitheater right in that general vicinity that was just really fantastic to go and see. And you could go out and you could be up in the top of it, and you can go down and be underground where they used to have the fighters and the competitors for the gladiator type things from the Roman era, and it was some really cool stuff to see.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool.
A particular castle. I'm sorry, I don't have one off the top
That's
of
all
my
right.
head.
It just came to my head.
Sure,
um,
sure.
yeah. Actually, you're talking about all these castles and swords and stuff like that. The album cover, portrays all that stuff and the things that you're into. So tell me about the artwork. Is that from all that? Oh, my
Yeah, it
computer's just
definitely
froze.
kind
Sorry.
of ties into that. The artwork was intended to sort of mimic, the old Frazetta stuff, of Conan. If
Right,
you
right,
remember a lot of the artwork like that, he also did, I believe, Somali Hatchet album covers back
right.
in the day.
Yeah,
And so it's definitely intended to sort of portray that kind of a feel and so forth. And yeah, it ties into that medieval fantasy aspect that I incorporated into the music some. As far as the world that I live in with that medieval stuff and trying to bring that into the theme of the music that I write.
yeah, yeah. I do
The
like
artwork
the.
was great. I had a friend of mine that does that. She's very talented. Sarah Hartman
Mm.
is her name, and she's excellent. She's great.
Yeah, she did a really good job on that. It really brings me back to like the '80s, and also the music is very like kind of like more of the hard rock, like kind of the '80s style. So it does kind of tie in all together. So it's really cool. Looks really good.
Yeah, absolutely. That was kind of, yeah, with that for sure. Was to sort of bring the music is very guitar retro, kind of 80s. In some ways, glam rock in some capacities, in some other ways, it kind of has a little bit of a blues element. I think,
Yeah,
almost like like a honky tonk in some kind of aspects with piano and things like that in the music. Um, but yeah, it's all sort of ties together thematically with that 80s kind of a vibe for sure.
yeah. And you even throw a saxophone on the album too. Tell me about what was the idea of throwing that in there? Because not too many hard rock bands nowadays
Yeah,
do that kind of stuff. Oh, the
we
connection's really
like the
bad. You
idea
keep
of really
freezing.
bringing in something that.
No, the
Oh yeah, I'm
connection's really
sorry.
bad. Yeah.
Something that really kind of tied in uh, that '80s feel a little bit. It's almost like if you remember, like the old Lost Boys movie, where you got the guys out there from the vampire movie, and they're playing at that party on the beach, and you got that saxophone player kind of thing going on.
Mm.
But at the same time, it was really just kind of a nice instrumental. It brought another whole element to the song when we kind of put that into the mix.
Yeah.
And it was with Daryl Slazinski, and that was to get that in there.
Yeah, I think it sounds pretty cool. I do like saxophones and some hard rock stuff like that. So it was cool to hear that you brought that in there. Now tell me the
Thanks.
bands that you were influenced by for this album, or just in general.
Yeah, and my musical influence covers a wide variety. It's not just limited to, from where I'm right now. I can see my Cat Stevens T for the Tillerman album, and I'm also looking at one of my Thin Lizzy records right here. So, I got Peter Gabriel and Fleetwood Mac, but I got my Kurt over here too. So I've got,
Yeah,
you start naming bands like that, and also, it kind of bring in, it's got a little bit of a Def Leppard feel. I've heard people compare it to Meatloaf in
yeah,
some capacities with the way the vocals are, kind of brought out. And I kind of see a little bit of all of that in the music. I don't have any objections to that.
yeah. What's your favorite Thin Lizzy album?
Oh, I would have to say, I'm sitting here looking at my Chinatown album,
China.
but I'd have to go with Jailbreak. I'd say.
Oh, really? All right, cool. My favorite's Black Rose. I think
Nice.
it's one of my
Sure.
one of my
I can see that.
top favorites of theirs. It's just from beginning to end, it's just it's just an awesome album. Uh,
Yeah, I like Soldier of Fortune. I really get that's a great song.
yeah. You can't really go wrong. I mean, they're such a great band, and I wasn't huge into them when I was younger. I got into them later on, and just going through the whole discography and everything. It's just the things that they done, and even Phil Lynott, like his vocals and everything, and how he plays bass, it just blew me away, and I just became a huge fan of him.
Oh yeah, I've kind of run the same story as far as that goes. I kind of came to Thin Lizzy a little bit later, and like you say, I really like the vocals and the sort of the swagger in the music, the storytelling.
Yeah.
That and very bass driven. Also, like you mentioned there, it's good stuff.
Yeah. It's a shame. I think they didn't get they're not as they what I'm trying to say, they I wish they would have gotten more notoriety than they did. I think they really missed out. Especially like in today's. I wish Phil was still here. Maybe he'd still be doing stuff. I don't know. It's just they're due more than what they got when they were around.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So you started this band very later on in life. You had that, you were in the military and everything. And so tell me about, like, did you finally get into, like, picking up a guitar and singing and all that? Did you take singing lessons when you were younger, or how'd that happen?
When I was young, I was always a vocalist. I did as a kid, and I did chorus and I did solos in that regard, and I was like all state vocalist for a while out of high school. And even for a while, I did some stuff singing when I was in the Navy for a little bit of time too. Uh, just briefly, and so it was always just sort of the vocal thing was something I had done early on, and never really picked up an instrument. Until later on after my military service and so forth.
Mm.
It's kind of that situation where you've got someone you kind of put off doing certain aspects of things because you don't really think you can do it. You don't think you're going to have any success with that, and so you make other life choices. And then later on in life, I was like, I could do this. Why not? And so that's kind of where I came to. And I picked up the guitar, and over the years, I've been getting better at it, and I decided to pursue some songwriting. And I was fortunate enough to hook up with Bob Acquaviva, uh, who was sort of guided me in a way and was willing to kind of take me under his wing, and he saw some potential there, and we decided to go with it.
Tell me about Bob, because how did you get involved working with him?
I was just refining my playing. I just kind of came across some happenstance as someone to help, improve my playing, and I was taking lessons from him and so forth. and it was just pure coincidence that as in that regard as something he was doing on the side, that he's got a long-standing history
Yeah.
as a producer, and he's worked with lots of bands and lots of big names. At this stage in his career, he works more locally, um,
Mm.
but so it was really fortunate for me to get an opportunity to work with him.
Yeah, that's cool. And he also played on the album too, right?
He did. He plays a lot of the instruments on the album. Frankly,
Oh,
I
really?
play some rhythm guitar on that,
Hmm.
and he basically plays everything else besides the saxophone. So
Oh,
the band is kind of starting to come together. We kind of did it backwards. We had this sort of brainchild for putting together the music, and brought in a couple of other people to do some backup vocals and some side instruments and stuff. And now we're sort of putting the band together and getting ready to get out and do some live shows with a couple of the guys that have, Bob and Chuck Heath, who was on the record as a backup vocalist, is going to play bass for us. And we've got a drummer and another guitarist coming in, so it's coming together as far as the band,
yeah.
and we're looking forward to doing some live shows with it.
That's cool. So once you get this band together, if you plan on doing another album, do you think this will be like the band for the next album, or are you want to just stay with you and Bob? How are you going to do that?
I'm really hoping so. I really like it to become something like that. And if this core group of guys that we're putting together, and that ends up being something that everybody's on board with, I would like to see that happen. I like the creative aspect of it, and the songwriting aspect of it. But I think once you start to involve other people in that, and you can turn that into something that you might not get just on your own.
Oh, right. Yeah, definitely. Now, did you come up with all these songs on your own, or did Bob help you write a lot of this stuff, or how did that work out?
I would come in and I wrote all the I with the acoustic. I'd sit down and I'd write all the basic chords and structure, and the lyrics are all me.
Mm,
And then we would come in and we'd sort of talk about together, what kind of parts we would bring into it with the other instruments, and flesh it out, and to make it a full song and bring it to life in that regard. But the initial songwriting all started with me, and then Bob and I would sort of work as a team, after that.
yeah. All right, cool. Did you guys record this all in like the studio, or did you do it home on your own? How did you work on the album?
He's he's got a home based studio that he uses right out of his house,
Okay.
Wayne Manor Studios. It's here in local Utica, New York. He pumps out several albums a year out of
Mm,
his studio here, and and so he's got all the gear, all the equipment that you could hope to have to put out a quality product.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. And he did a really good job, producing it and everything, and it sounds good. And then you had it mixed, or not mixed, but mastered from somebody in Tokyo. How you so far away, you set your album so far away to get mastered. What was the idea for that?
Well, he's Bob's got an established relationship with this guy, and it's just kind of who
Okay.
he uses. Kind of a situation.
Yeah.
Wasn't really involved with that. He hooked up with him a number of years ago. As I understand the story, this guy had sort of reached out to him about doing some mastering for him, and initially his price was more than Bob was like. No, you're not going to get anyone that's going to pay that, and they
Right.
kind of came to an arrangement, and so he gets a good price for him, and gets the stuff taken care of.
Real cool. So, do you have shows actually getting ready to be booked now, or do you have anything like set in stone yet, or are you still waiting for that?
Not booked yet, but we're sort of in rehearsal stage right now, and
Right.
it's looking like probably we were hoping March. It might not hit quite March. It might end up being April once we get everyone together and sort of getting down to it.
Mm.
But I want to have I'm coming out fresh, new to this, and I want it to sound good. I don't want it to suck, and so we're gonna nail it, and we're gonna get out there.
Yeah. Have you ever played in front of like a crowd before?
I have, but not as a full band.
Yeah.
Never in this kind of a full arrangement with other musicians and so forth, but not in a full band setup. I've done a lot out, sort of, sitting down with an acoustic and stuff like that independently on my own and so forth. So
Right.
it's I'm really am, a fresh in the water, if you will.
Yeah.
Instead of just dipping my toe, I jumped the hell straight in and went for it. So uh, I'm a novice, and I'll admit to that in some regards, as far as getting out there and performing in that regard. But I've also, I've kind of been a showman my whole life. Just a natural ham, if you will. And so getting up on stage and doing it in front of people is ain't nothing else new.
Yeah. Yeah, cool, man. I can't wait till you get out there. I played a show. God, it must have been like maybe 10 years ago by now, and I have a new band that I just started up last year, and we're booking to start playing out a couple shows, probably sometime in like May or whatever, sometime over the summer. And
Yeah,
I'm kind of nervous about it. It's been a long time.
yeah, sure.
And I'm not in the same shape I
But
was about 10 years ago either, so.
but it's like, is there anything better than that once you're out there and you're
Oh
doing
yeah.
that kind of thing? Isn't it just the best? It's
Yeah,
just the best feeling.
it is. Yeah, we had our first band practice like a couple weeks ago, and when I first broke up my old band, I was kind of like, all right, I'm done. I don't want to do this no more because I'm just sick of the whole scene. And then when we got
Yeah, yeah.
together a few weeks ago, I was like, this is actually fun. We all get along and everybody's good with each other, and we were actually having fun playing. I mean, the studio we had was kind of shitty because we couldn't hear each other, but it was still fun. Playing songs that because we're all like in different areas, so we finally got together and played together for the first time. So it was fun. Good
Excellent.
stuff.
That's great,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, that's I love playing music, so it's. But yeah, I wish you luck with the album. It's called I lost the thing here, Along a Path. And where could people go to buy it? It's you have like CDs and vinyl and stuff available for people?
Yeah, I don't have mine, unfortunately. I do have CDs. You can get those on Bandcamp or at Rick Reichert. I think it's Rick Reichert Music. It might just be Rick Reichert. And then it's available, digitally as well. You can stream it on. It's out there on iTunes and all the platforms, Spotify, all the streaming platforms it's available on those. And so you can get a hard copy disc through Bandcamp or digital streams from Bandcamp, as well as on all the other major streaming platforms. So
Very cool. What do you prefer? Do you prefer the CD or do you prefer the digital?
well, I mean, if you get it on Bandcamp, you're doing the artist. I mean, right?
Yeah, yeah,
The artist gets more of a share. You buy it on Bandcamp, I make more of the money rather
right.
than some other company.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Nope, I don't blame it because yeah, you make nothing on Spotify. It's a joke. So everybody go to bandcamp.com and buy Rick Reichardt's album. And again, Rick, thank you very much for coming on the show. I wish you all the luck in the world on the album and playing out live and doing shows. And yeah, we'll hopefully see you for maybe the next album.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
All right, no problem. Everybody go to ratsaladreview.com and we will see you next week. Bye bye.